Hey everybody, this is DM Mike, and this is soundtrack number 2 in my recommendation list. Last week we had Darksiders. Today we have Dark Void. Didn't plan it that way. This is kind of the way it worked out. But you can see some of the gameplay back here. This game came out in 2010. It was developed by Capcom. Unfortunately, it bombed. I've never played it. I wanted to give it a shot, but apparently, according to Steam reviews, it's not doing well at all. It has troubles with Windows 10, and there's secure ROM issues, and it's just a pain in the butt to use, a lot of bugs. So I would recommend probably avoiding it. Now, this is a CD that I would say is really well-rounded. All right, it's got a lot of dramatic music, tense music, combat music, intro music, all kinds of stuff you really could use for your campaign for all kinds of different scenarios. This CD has 27 tracks on it, and it's sitting on Amazon right now for, I think, $8. I'm referring to notes here, $8.83 for a physical copy. Here's the weird thing about this album. It's done by Bear McCreary, who's done a lot of great stuff. He did the most recent God of War. He's done the Battlestar Galactica TV series, and he's also done like Walking Dead and a plethora of other things. Well, there's no digital copies of this. I don't know why. This is me checking Amazon and iTunes. I don't know why that's the case. But most digital purchases sit around $8.99 or $9.99, and this physical copy is less than both of those. So I'd recommend highly that you go get the physical copy, and mainly because that's your only choice. But for whatever the reason, it's just not been released digitally. Maybe you'll find it somewhere on some obscure store that I haven't seen, but for popular stores like Amazon and iTunes, I was really surprised this isn't on there. So in other words, it's a cheap CD. So this is again, it's a well-rounded soundtrack. You're going to find plenty of stuff here. There's emotional music, and also it has, I would say, a serials 1920s kind of vibe to it, almost like you could fit it into an old, into a jungle scenario. But don't let that sway you because it may sound like a 1920s kind of thing. It still works in a fantasy setting. So there's nothing wrong with this music. It'll work perfectly for you. So let's go into track usage, right? Let's look at all the tracks and see what we can use. I'm going to use my notes here because I give up trying to read, off screen. I've got 6 battle tracks. We'll put them somewhere over here. 6 battle tracks for this, number 3, 9, 14, 18, and 20, and 23. Now, some of these are run about 2 or 3 minutes. Some run up to 5, and I think one, I'm not sure if it's one of these, but I think it's one that's like around 6 or 7 minutes. So it's pretty good, all right? And that's a good 6 or 7 tracks right there that you could stick into your battle cues. Sentimental tracks. This is number 22 and number 25. I see these more as maybe moments of reflection from your characters, most likely from the NPCs more than your PCs, but maybe your NPCs are reflecting on something. They're looking back on something, whatever the case may be. These are 2 really good pieces to have in the background as you're narrating this. Really, really works. All right, so dramatic tracks. We got number 4 and number 8. Number 4 is a good introduction to maybe like a jungle setting. All right, jungle, forest, whatever. I think it primarily works really, really well if you're setting your characters off into a jungle setting. Number 8 is good for an introduction for a desert or a town or city. Maybe a town or city in a desert. It just has that kind of feel. That's when that 1920s feel comes into it. So really, really effective for that, guys. All right, so introductory type music. This would be an introduction to an environment, to an enemy, a weapon, whatever the case may be, all right? So I'll put a huge list up here, 5, 6, number 10, 13, 17, 19, and 20. This is a lot of stuff here. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks, right? Number 5, good villain intro. You got a bad villain? This is his theme song. Number 6, this is a great thematic energy type march for like a military. Like the Imperial March for Star Wars. This is that kind of thing. So if you've got a lot of drow on the march or something like that, or elves or whatever you've got going on, this is a great thematic piece for that. Number 10, I saw this as great flight music. All right, let's say your characters are riding a griffin or wyverns or whatever else, children. It's just a great flight music. I think I've actually used this in Horde of the Dragon Queen and some of my radio dramas. Matter of fact, my radio dramas, I've got a lot of this music in there. So you got a lot of flights coming up. Track number 10. Number 13, short and sweet. I saw this as some really nice ending music. I think this is the one that's only about 45 seconds or so, but it's a good way to cap or end a session. Number 17, this is for that bombastic intro to an encounter, maybe a villain or a vehicle, something to that effect, right? So it's really a lot of drums, a lot of things going on. So it's really bombastic and perfect for that. Number 19 is great for an intense moment at the table. I think for us, maybe, characters having a standoff, or something like that. Number 19 would fit really well for that particular situation. Number 20, this could serve as a great opening for a combat scenario or another kind of intense scene. But I think, is that it? Wow. Okay. So that's what I've got on this. You can see most of these categories, you've got 6 or 7 tracks per category. So like, again, it's just a well-rounded soundtrack. And I want to just give you a quick example of how I've used this music just recently. I'll show you a quick, I'll let it play for a little bit here. It's just one of my radio dramas. I'm not going to play the whole thing. But again, hearing the music in context, this is called The Fall of Linathan. Happens in Hoard of the Dragon Queen when Linathan gets shot by a ballista. This is something I did in my campaign, Chapter 1. But you can hear it here. You can hear some of that great combat music setting the scene and listening to Linathan fly through the city. Then the dragon soars above the smoldering city, turning his great bulk and aiming for the town's keep for his final attack. Wicked snarl reveals a row of jagged teeth as his dark energy builds within, summoning a powerful breath weapon of tendril lightning. With the invigorating aroma of death and calamity below swelling his pride, the great dragon cries out into the night.
Fear me! The great Linathan, the spear of your impending doom.
All right, guys, so there you go. You can go back and listen to all these Hoard of the Dragon Queen campaigns. You're going to hear already some of the stuff from Dark Void. You're going to hear what Darksider is the one I recommended earlier. There's a lot of stuff I've used. And, if I can give you 2 campaign books where I think Dark Void would work really well in, it would be Storm King's Thunder and Tomb of Annihilation. I think this, if you just want to set a soundtrack to a book, this soundtrack would work really, really well in those environments. So guys, my goal here is to show you those tracks, give you a little bit of snippets of information. Don't want these videos to drag on too long, but to give you an idea of how to use them, because the point of all this is to use music effectively and how to use it and where to use it, and pull back from the ideas of just playing music for hours on end with the point where nobody's really listening anymore. So that's really the goal of the series. So that's why I'm going to break down the tracks and maybe just give you a quick idea of how you could use it in your campaign. Now, next week is going to be a killer soundtrack. You need this soundtrack in your collection. All right, I'm just telling you right now. This soundtrack was based on a game that bombed, that just did terrible. It was so disappointing. I never played it, but this is what I saw in the gaming news. But the soundtrack soared and everybody praised it. All right, you're going to want this one for any campaign you're running. All right, guys, I'll see you next Monday with the 3rd soundtrack recommendation, one that you need to just go ahead and start saving up for, right? It'll be cheap. It's cheap. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.